This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. It was a busy week in politics as we saw two new entrants into the Arkansas governor's race. Talk show host Doc Washburn said he would challenge Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the Republican primary, and attorney Jay Martin said he was joining the crowded Democratic field for Arkansas governor. I caught up with Martin for a conversation. You have looked to run for higher office in the past, for a statewide office in the past, but you've not pulled the trigger on that. You are pulling the trigger now after a noticeable absence from Arkansas politics in terms of being an elected official. Why is the timing good for you now?
Well, it's better personally for me now. My daughters are older. They're all teenagers now, and they don't care as much as if I'm home or not. So it just seems like a better time personally. But there comes a time when leaders have to step up in difficult days and lead. So it feels like with the pandemic, with the lack of unity, that it's the perfect time for a bridge builder to get back involved in the public arena and try to make a difference.
Tell me where you feel like there has been some leadership that has failed, that has driven you to get into this race.
Well, I think we had a public health crisis that both Democrats and Republicans used politically. And I think it would have been much better had we worked together to try to come up with solutions. And so I think there's, because of the pandemic and some of the response, I think there's just been a lot of mistrust and a lot of division. And so I think it's the perfect time for a candidate to get in who can unite and who can help restore trust and work with both sides. Of course, I've done that. I was the majority leader in the 85th General Assembly and was able to bring together Democrats, and we had a bipartisan committee, work with Republicans on important legislation. So it seems like a great time for somebody who can create unity, work together, to try to make sure that, Arkansas is a special place, Roby, you know that. We're a very special state with special values. And so I want to continue to lead in the spirit of Governor Mike Beebe, the job creation that he started, that I think, frankly, Governor Hutchinson did a great job following up with. We want to see the economy thriving. We want to see our education has to improve, our scores for our children. We have to have excellent public schools for all of our children. So there's just a lot of things that we need to work on.
You've hit on a couple of issues it sounds like will be the center piece of your campaigning. What about tax cuts? We have seen quite a bit on the tax cut front since when you were in the state legislature. Do you support the tax cut plan that has most recently gone in place? Would you continue to try to cut income taxes?
I think we have to look at taxes. I have talked about on my website, you can see that we had hoped to have some targeted small business tax cuts to help with post-COVID recovery. I'm not opposed to tax cuts. I mean, the state does have to provide essential services. We have prisons to run, a lot of other essential services, the state police. So I think we have to look at those issues. Arkansas, of course, has to have a balanced budget. So we have to make sure that we provide a balanced budget and so that our bills are paid. So we're looking at all of those issues and trying to determine where would be best for some targeted tax cuts that we think would help and spur on the economy. I do believe tax cuts help spur the economy and spur spending with the extra money that is placed in the hands of the citizens. So we're certainly not opposed to them. We do want to guard the safety nets that are in place for the vulnerable. We believe that government has to be run efficiently for that reason, Roby. We don't think the government can be all things to all people, as some advocate. You certainly lose a lot of revenue when you start giving money to people who are not truly in need or who really don't need to have that safety net. So I think we need to be very careful to have the safety net for people that have it in place. We will guard that. At the same time, we're not opposed to some targeted tax cuts.
So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to sharpen my question a little bit for you on this. So what I hear you saying is that you support some targeted tax relief, perhaps, certain income demographics, certain business groups, but I'm not hearing you say you support broad-based income tax cuts like we have done and seen in the last couple of legislative sessions. Is that accurate?
Well, I think that, you can look at sister states, and of course, we're competing with our border states, particularly towns like Texarkana with Texas that doesn't have a state income tax, and other states that are close that don't have income taxes. And we're competing with them to try to get great paying jobs here, and also for people to assist with that. The problem becomes, though, that you have to have that balanced budget. So I haven't looked at some of the plans that other candidates have in place. We are definitely in favor of some targeted tax relief. In Texas, though, for instance, they have very high property taxes, which I think helps them pay for state government. I'm definitely not in favor of raising taxes on property. So to get to that zero sum, that balanced budget, I'm curious to see what the other plans call for. We think you can get there with some targeted tax cuts. We're not opposed to that. If there's a reduction in income tax, we're certainly not opposed to looking at that either. If there's a way to generate income without taxing people in some other areas, then I'm fine with cutting the income tax. But the problem becomes, again, you have to run state government efficiently. And so you have to do it on both ends. You run an efficient state government so that you need less revenue. And that's something that we did even when I was majority leader. Efficiency in state government was one of our core policy agendas. And I will continue that in my administration.
You've brought up twice, you were the House Majority Leader when you served in the legislature. This was when the Democrats were the majority party. You are still a Democrat. You're running as a Democrat. On your website, you talk a lot about your faith. You talk a lot about being a pro-life Democrat. Why are you a Democrat? Why do you think that's the party for you to run under that banner versus Republican?
The Democrats have a broad tent. There are lots of people who have varying opinions who are Democrats. I remember when I first ran for office back in 2002, I talked to the leadership and I told them my values, which haven't changed in all these years. And they said, welcome to the party. And we're happy to have you as a candidate for state representative. When I was asked by the incoming speaker to consider being majority leader and to stand for majority leader with the Democratic caucus, I said, I'm a fairly conservative Democrat. And do you think that's a good idea? And he said, your values reflect that of the values of the Arkansas people and our rural Democrats, our farm Democrats. They trust you. You do very well across the board with Democrats. And we think you're someone they trust. And so he wanted me to stand for majority leader. So I've always been a Democrat. I come from a family of Democrats on my father's side. So I am proud to run in the Democratic Party. I've never been a Republican, never been an independent, although I am independent. I'm going to do what I think is right. And if it disagrees with the Democratic Party, I'm sorry, but I've got to do what I think is right. I guess that's where I am, Roby.
All right, fair enough. You're late to the fundraising game in terms of there's a lot of people on the Republican side and the Democrat side that have more money in their balance on at least what's been publicly filed. Where's your money going to come to fund this campaign? Are you thinking about self-funding to some degree?
Well, you're absolutely right, Roby. We haven't had a lot of time for fundraising. We have had some time. And we've been really focusing on Arkansas with our fundraising efforts. I know there are a lot of efforts that are nationwide and from different locales, and that's fine. We're trying to represent the Arkansas people and share a message. We think in the coming months, we will do just fine with fundraising. We obviously have a budget that we're filling and fulfilling, and we think we will get that done. We don't look for that to be a problem, but we don't think this race is going to come down necessarily to who raises the most money. We think it's going to be about who has the best message for the people of Arkansas and who can continue leadership in the office of governor that will be best for the Arkansas people. And sometimes that's the candidate that raises the most money. Sometimes it's the candidate that doesn't. So we'll continue to raise money, but if we don't outraise anyone, we're going to keep providing this message.